In the year of our Lord 1598, 5 trader warships left the Dutch city of Rotterdam as the first expeditionary force ever sent to ravage and plunder Spanish and Portuguese possessions in the recently discovered New World.
The ship, the Golden Hind, which played the part of the Erasmus in the story, sailed from London, and the first time that Jerry and I saw it was when it landed in San Francisco. And from San Francisco, sailed to Yokohama, which was the second time that Jerry and I saw it.
She had an engine in her, but the original English skipper was a purist, and he wouldn't use it. They sailed her over and went into Yokohama, and then they sailed her down around to the Straits of Bungo and up to A.S.C on the seaward side, where we wanted to work. And it also had a typhoon safe harbor.
The crew that brought it over, we dressed them, and when we used it, they did the sailing for us, of course.
We had to then modify the Golden Hind to also look like the black ship of the Portuguese. So I had to do a mocked-up paint job, and there wasn't much you could do about the structure itself, you know, but to make it look different.
The big adventure with the Erasmus was in the very opening shot, which was about 2.5 minutes of narration over the ocean, and then we finally see the ship. I had to go out to sea in a helicopter.
The opening shot, which I frankly designed years and years and years before we shot Shogun for another project that never came to be. And I thought that it would be wonderful to see this tiny little boat in the middle of a vast ocean, first coming at it with a helicopter and then circling it. And in fact, that's what we did.
Actually, we did a 360-degree before we came up onto Richard Chamberlain at the helm of the Erasmus. When I got to the helicopter, they had absolutely nothing to mount the camera on, and I had to handhold it. And on a helicopter, it's very difficult to handhold, especially if you don't have a windscreen on the helicopter, because the wind hits the camera and it's very difficult to hold steady.
It took us a while to find it, and I got a little concerned. And we're looking and looking and looking, and I said, I wonder how much fuel this helicopter has. I got really concerned. And then finally we found it, and we did that beautiful opening shot where it goes into the water and picks it up. It was a great shot.
There, pursued and outnumbered by Spanish fleets, a retreat cut off, this ship turned westward and fled alone into the unknown.
We really only had 2 boats. We had the Erasmus and we had the Galley, which was built for us down in Nagashima. An accurate Japanese galley, so accurate that unfortunately we didn't think about putting a motor in it, because it took a huge crew of rowers to move it. If we'd been smart, we would have put a motor in it and simply not photographed it, but we weren't that clever. It took a lot of time to move that galley.
There was a rocky point between the 2 sets, and we're over there, and a car pulls up, and Nishioka-san is in, and he says, with the interpreter, he says, they're rowing the Toranaga's galley over here to tie it up. And about that time I looked up, and here she came around the point. And they could get it up to about 6 knots and hold it, but not for more than about half an hour. But they were going full bore. She had a bone in her teeth, and she was coming around there. It was like looking up and seeing a dinosaur walking out. The hair stood up on the back of my neck.
Filming on the ship was not pleasant. These ships are not the most stable conveyances that you could be on. They pitch and roll. In fact, I took a handheld camera and climbed down on the side, in the rigging on the side of the ship, to take a shot of the bow as it was slicing through the water. And the moment I was in position with the camera, the ship rolled, and camera and I were all underwater. And a lot of the people got seasick, and very seriously seasick.
I remember the first day we went out to sea in the galley. Now, nobody built a galley in Japan for 300 years, and we had built one for the show. The only snag was it was a bit top-heavy, and the boat was wallowing in the water like that. There wasn't a tide, per se. Well, there was some tide, but there wasn't much wind movement on the water. But the water was like a sheet of glass reflecting in your eyes. Humidity, as in always in Japan, 100%. You know, to remain clean in Japan, you'd have to change your shirt 5 times a day. I mean, it was so humid. It was quite a memorable day because Jerry had taken, I think, 3 Dramamines just to try and keep his breakfast down. He was directing on the floor. He was slumped up on the deck. Okay, roll it. Okay, let's go again. Yeah, okay. All right, cut.
On the boats, it was horrific when we were out at sea because there was literally no place to hide from the sun. The air wasn't moving at all. The heat and humidity were just astounding. And the food, they'd bring out these sort of boxed lunches. And by the time it was lunchtime, they were all sort of semi-rancid. And that was tough. That was very tough.
Chamberlain, of course. Richard. Between takes, he'd sit down, he'd take out his fan and just fan himself like that. If somebody vomited in his eye line, he would just change his eye line slightly like that. Chamberlain affected not to notice a single thing going round him.
I remember on the boats, John Rhys-Davies made the mistake of sort of living it up on the boat. There was no shade, this heat was relentless out in the sea, there wasn't a ripple in the water, there wasn't a breath of air. And I used to hunker down under my little umbrella and take it easy between scenes, but he was out whooping it up with the crew and everything, and eventually lost energy at the end of the scene and couldn't quite get through the day.
Now me, I'm strong as a bull. You know, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
I'm a tired man. Then go sleep. I'll take the watch for you.
Richard taught me this. All they're paying you for is that time in front of the camera when the camera is switched on. In the meantime, just sit down, relax, save your energy. Chuy Elizondo, one of the toughest camera operators I've ever met. Chuy was just focused and determined. He'd switch the camera off at the end of the take, he'd go to the side, he'd throw up, he'd get back to the camera and keep going.
It was tight quarters. There were hot days. And so working on the boat was one of those things that are not necessarily pleasant in the line of cinematography, but it was part of the job.